Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on what time you're watching this. My name's Connor from 905 Review. You're tuning into our series, Give This a Spin, where I recommend you guys some of my favorite albums. Today with the Melvins' 1993 release, Houdini. Melvins are a sludge metal band from the town of Montesano in the Seattle area, consisting primarily of frontman Buzz Osborne, aka King Buzzo, and drummer Dale Crover. The group would release 4 albums from 1987 through 1992, and 1993's Houdini would mark their major label debut, being signed to label Atlantic Records. As a result of this, they shifted their overall sound to be somewhat more accessible, while still overall being a devastating listen. The album was made essentially entirely by the 2 members. However, Lori Black, daughter of Shirley Temple crazily enough, is also credited, as she was previously in the band. With that brief intro out of the way, we'll jump into the tracks, starting off with Hooch, one of the most pummeling album intros of all time, and right off the bat with its drums. It honestly did not take many listens of this album for Dale Crover to become one of my favorite drummers. Maybe I somewhat subconsciously gave up on trying to decipher lyrics on my own time because of songs like this. And as with much of this album, the lyrics they're something. A deep and almost ominous bass line starts off the second track, Night Goat, as we get more into the same heavy sound. And I cannot even get into describing how often this song gets stuck in my head. Both the drum rhythm and the riff to it are just perfect earworms for me. Continuing this strong opening stretch of the album is the track Lizzie, which at a lot of times in it is a lot less intense than the previous 2. It's a real shame the album didn't come with a lyric sheet at all, because every website that has lyrics listed has them differently. So, I mean, it was already hard enough to try and tell what's going on, but it's just significantly harder now. Realistically speaking, it probably wouldn't even help that much, though. I think I'd still just be as lost as I am now. Hey, you want to pose for a thumbnail, buddy? Look at you. What's going on here? There you are. Okay, I'll let you go. Next is the group's fantastic cover of the Kiss track, Goin' Blind. They managed to maintain their signature heavy sound, while also simultaneously playing a song that's clearly poppier and more radio-centric. And to be honest, when I think of putting on this track, it's almost always this version I gravitate towards. Then getting us right back into Melvin's signature sound is the ridiculous Honey Bucket. There's a brief intro of the band just kind of jamming around a little bit, but once the main rhythm and riff hit, does this song ever go hard? The guitar on it is so damn distorted. Absolutely killer song though. Ending an essentially flawless first side of an album is the track Hag Me, and it is significantly sludgier than any we've heard so far. It is 7 minutes of pure chaos in the slowest of fashions, and it's quite reminiscent of the group's work on their earlier albums. Opening the second side of the album, we have the track Set Me Straight, an incredibly rocking song, and probably the most upbeat throughout the whole album. This, plus the fact there's actually competent lyrics to it, made me have to double check, as I kind of expected this would have been a single put out to promote the album. Surprisingly, it actually took me quite a bit of time to get into Set Me Straight. It was only really a couple listens ago, when I was making sure I was really familiar enough with this album to do a review on, that it started to kind of resonate with me. And I'm thankful for that, because I absolutely love it now. Next up, we reach the track Sky Pup, and it's honestly not that great to me. It almost sounds too improvised. It's almost like it's oddly structured. Like you get this loungy bass-led part, and then it cuts into the wobbly sounding guitar part. Definitely their most out-of-the-box song. Well, so far anyways. And King Buzzo's vocals on this only really add to that. The drums on this pretty much are the only positive on it for me. Let me ask you though, did that guitar part sound familiar at all to you? That's because it's actually played by friend of the band and fellow Seattle band frontman Kurt Cobain. Himself, Osbourne, and Crover had actually been acquainted for quite a while throughout the years leading up to this. And as a matter of fact, Crover was even part of Nirvana at one point. Kurt Cobain was actually brought in to help produce the album. We'll use help lightly, as supposedly he didn't even contribute all that much. Granted, the album was released only like half a year before his death, and he really wasn't in any sort of shape to help out much, you know. Moving on from this is the 9th track, Joan of Arc. A constant heavy strumming, reminiscent of the first side of the album, leads us in. We remember what we first got ourselves into when we tossed this record on, once the drums and guitar on this really hit. Pummeling song, fit for a pummeling album. After this, we get into the more grunge-sounding Teat, led by its bass line. After this is, well, I don't actually have any idea, to be honest. My first time seeing the track listing, I thought, man, is this how the hell Capiche is spelled? Well, the group's live album of a performance of this album has it listed as Cop Ache, so we'll roll with that. As a matter of fact, after Googling the song title, the player profile of a CFL player with this name came up. Can you imagine if you were named after... Oh yeah, and his birthday was only like a year after the album's release. Could you imagine being named after a Melvins song? How hardcore would that be? Not only is this the shortest song on the album, but it also understandably has the fewest lyrics to it, which, if you thought that meant it would be any easier to understand, you would be mistaken. Another fast track, this one definitely goes hard. After this is the track Pearl Bomb. It opens with this spammingly repetitive sound, almost like typing on a typewriter, I suppose. This is until a mysterious, like, I don't know, James Bond kind of bass line joins in. These two continue for more than half the song before Buzzo's kind of inside voice vocals chime in. Not that great a song to me, to be honest. Ending the album is our zany 10-minute instrumental Spread Eagle Beagle. It's pretty much just an experimental drum session, but I mean, at least the drums go hard. While Houdini is widely available on CD and cassette, upon the album's release in 1993, there were only 2 pressings of it on vinyl, being in the United States and Germany, and for the longest time, these were the only editions you could get of it on wax. That is, until our main guy, Jack White, of White Stripes fame, and his label Third Man Records, got the rights to re-release some more in 2016. And for that, we thank you, Jack White. And with that, we got some really rare editions. One limited to 200 copies, one limited to 28 copies, all autographed, and one limited to 24 copies, all autographed, all with their own unique sleeves and all printed on yellow vinyl. Then again in 2019, we had another limited to 1,500 copies and printed on a silver vinyl. And another thing of note, I wasn't able to identify if there's any pattern or reasoning to it, but throughout the years, different editions of the album end on a different track. Some end on Spread Eagle Beagle, as we heard, and others end on the band covering the band MC5's song Rocket Reducer number 62. Though it didn't break through to any real mainstream crowd, as the group maintains more of a cult following, Houdini would end up being Melvins' most successful record. The album is recognized as being one of the best sludge metal releases out there, and the duo's foray into a more accessible sound also led it to be put on many best grunge album lists as well. Houdini is an incredible listen, especially considering it was pretty much just Buzz and Dale. It was equally impressive they remained so heavy while also opening their sound up to a much larger audience, perhaps most on their track Going Blind. With that being said, I'm going to stamp Houdini with an A grading. It seems only fitting that somebody who pays so little attention to lyrics like myself would think so highly of an album like this, where they all seem so nonsensical. Considering that, maybe you're somebody who needs good lyrics to actually enjoy a song, and I don't know, you might be out of luck here on this one, because goddamn, a lot of these songs sound like when you just let autocorrect on your phone type out an entire sentence for you. While the first side of this album is practically untouchable, it's so good, it does definitely start to drop a bit on the second. But with all that being said, thank you for tuning in. This has been Connor, you've been the viewer, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself. But, real quick before we head out, what were your thoughts on Houdini? What were your thoughts on Melvins? Did I rate the album too high or did I rate the album too low? Let me know down below, as well as any other thoughts, concerns, criticisms you might have, and we hope to see you again.